Hi, I'm Professor Shanky. Welcome to another tech tutorial. In this video, I want to cover forms and reports. I'm going to go to my Create tab, and I have tables, queries, forms, and then reports. So let's look at forms. We have the same form wizard. I'm going to start with a blank form. And the default view here is going to be your standard form view. We also have a layout view, which we'll use after we have some items on our form, and then the design view. So I'm going to look at the design view, and we have a nice grid layout to help us organize everything. Now, you'll notice it's kind of blank. Up here in the Design Tools, I do have a few things. In the Design tab, I have some controls, header, footer. I have the Arrange, which helps me with the alignment, and the Format. So up here, I have my Detail section, which is the main section. But if you wanted to have a header and footer, we can add that as well. So we could add a title, and when we do title, we'll call it customer data entry form. It automatically put that in here in my header section and gave me a blank footer section. So when I view this, I have a nice looking, blue highlighted header that tells me, hey, I am in my customer data entry screen. So let me go back to Design View, and I can add information such as text boxes here. So if I come up here and choose the label control, draw the area where I'd like to have the text, and I could put some information up here, perhaps warning, this for customer data management only. Whatever you want. And again, I can click, and when I move my cursor to the outside edge, I have the little move icon with my cursor, and I can move my text box. I can resize my text box. If I come up here to the Arrange, I can align it to the grid. And when I check that, it's going to snap. So I can come up to the view and do the form view and see there's my label box. So far, so good, but it's kind of useless without being attached to some data on the back end. So we want to attach this form to our customer table. So if I click up here in this little square box, it'll highlight it with a darker square in the middle, and I come up here to my property sheet, and I can see the properties for my form. Under data, the record source is blank, which means this form is not attached to any source. If I click on this drop down arrow, you will see all of my tables and my queries. So forms can be attached to either a table or a query. In this case, I want to look at my customers and all of my customers, so I'm going to attach it to my customer record source. So next is our record set type. Now this is mostly applicable when we're dealing with a database that has a different data set on the back end. If we're using Access with a local database, it probably won't have that big of an effect on performance, but if you have a back-end database, maybe a large organization with millions of customers, these will definitely have performance impacts based on what you choose. So the Dynaset is the default, and what this does is it returns about 100 rows at a time. So it'll load data dynamically. So users are able to quickly get their data because it's only pulling small chunks as needed. It can have an impact on the speed of your network because it's only pulling a few things at a time, so there will be a lot more network traffic. But in general, it's really used for larger data sets, and it's okay for smaller ones as well. Just realize with the dynamic set, it's pulling about 100 rows at a time. The other option is a snapshot. So a snapshot will take all of the data and bring it down to access at once. So what that means is if you have a table with a couple of million records in it, the Dynaset only pulled the first 100 relative to what you're looking at. The snapshot will bring all 2 million down at once. So it will take some time for that data to come down to access. The local machine will need more RAM to hold that, and the user would expect some delay when first loading the form. The other big disadvantage of a snapshot is that it's read-only. Because it's a snapshot of what was, you can't make changes to it. It's read-only or view-only. So the reasons you would want to use a snapshot is if you're only searching, maybe you're looking up customer records but not editing them, and you have a large data set, you want to load it once, you can use a snapshot, it'll load it, and it'll be there as needed. If you're going to be going in and out and switching screens, the Dynaset might be a better choice. Some other options that we have further down that are important are the allow additions, allow deletions, allow edits, and allow filters. What this means is we have the ability to control, can I add new entries? Can I delete existing entries? In other words, if I say no to additions and no to deletions, I can look at my data set. Users can edit the information that's in there, but they can't delete one and they can't add new ones. I'm going to leave these all to yes. So now I have my basic data set configured. I can come back and click on this Add Existing Fields. So when I click Add Existing Fields, it looks at that customer's table and gives me, here are all the fields, the customer ID, and I can just click and drag it over and then arrange it how I want it. First name, last name, and date created. So now they're kind of jumbled up on my screen. I can select and highlight those. There you go. I don't want to get that. I just want these fields that I dragged over. Go to my Arrange tab, and now I can align them. So by clicking Align, I can align them to the left, and they'll all match on the left side. So click, and now they're all aligned to the left. And I'll click the last name, Align Right. So now I'm starting to get my data aligned, and I'm going to come back to the Design tab, View, Form View, and you'll see now I have customer ID, first name, last name, and a date. And at the very bottom, I now have my record control where I can see I have 1 of 7. I can scroll right and left, make changes as needed. I also have this new record. By clicking on this, it goes to a new record where I can call it Jane Doe. My customer ID auto updated for me, and the create date of June 12th. And now I can scroll back and forth and I have 8 records. I can search. I have a little search bar down here. DOE. Finds all the DOEs. Just by typing in, I can quickly search. Now, I'm going to go back to Design View. These labels are automatically created as the field name. I can change them just by clicking in there and typing in what I want. So instead of there. So now I have first name, last name, and date added. I can also manually move around however I want. I'm going to put these a little bit closer together. I'm eyeballing it right now. Now, you'll notice if I click on this, I have a gray square, and I move date added down. It also moves create date. So if I want to move one of these independently, I have to click on this gray square. And when I click the gray square and move, it moves just that. But if I click anywhere but the gray square and move, they come together. You can see it can get very meticulous to actually move things around, but you can drag however you want. And you're not required to have everything. So this customer ID, right now, it's enabled, and people could actually type in it. But it's an auto number. I don't want them to type in it. So when I click on my customer ID, on my property sheet over here on the right, and if you don't see property sheet, just go back to Design tab and click on it. But if I highlight customer ID, you can see over here the control source is coming from the customer ID. It's plain text. It's enabled, but it's not locked. That means people can edit it. So I can come here to the locked, do the drop down and say yes. And now customer ID cannot be edited. Same with date added. If I wanted to change that, I can say yes, that's locked. I can also give it a default value. So when new ones are created, let's say I just want it to be today's date. So I'll go date time now and run the now function. So now, let's go ahead and save this. And I'm going to call this one customer management. So now I have a customer management form. I'm going to go back to form view. I have customer ID 1, date added. Try and change this. It won't let me change it. No matter what date I change it to, it's going to stay the same because that is locked. So how do I create a new one? Let's click on our new record, and you'll see by default it put in today's date. I cannot change it. So some other things I can do. I want to take and get rid of some of this gray space, so I'm clicking above form footer and dragging it up. I can also do my width, and I can make this a little narrower. Now it's going to be restrained by the length of my maximum, so if I take that and make that a little bit smaller, there you go. And then I'll make my header title a little bit smaller. Now I can make my form a little bit smaller. And now when I view it in the default form view, it still looks full screen. But there's some other cool things I can do. And one more thing I want to show you, I'm going to come back here to my form properties. And instead of data tab, I'm going to go to the format tab. Right now it's a single form, which means it's one at a time. I can change it to continuous forms. So let me do continuous forms. And go back here to form view, and you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of scrolling right to left, continuous view just loops over all of the records. So back to design view, I'm going to put this back to single form. But if I go to my other tab, I have this thing called pop-up and modal. So right now I've been looking at this as a continuous form that's kind of full screen. But I can make it a pop-up. by saying pop-up, it's going to make it a pop-up window instead of taking up the whole form. So this starts to make it look more like a program and less like just an Access form. So we can make up some really neat things, but there's some things I don't like on here, such as the record, the filter search. So I can change a lot of that too. So you'll notice that I don't have my view anymore to change it. So if I right click up here in the title bar, I can go back to my design view. So pop-up changes it from a full screen to a pop-up box. The other option I have is Modal. Modal means it's going to stay locked until you close out of it. If I had Modal set to no, I'd be able to minimize that and continue working the database. Whenever I set something to pop up, I always like to set it to Modal as well. I can also go back to my format, and down here I have some other options. I have the min and max buttons. So I don't want them to be able to minimize or maximize it. I don't need scroll bars. Do I need navigation buttons? Left and right, yes. Record selectors, no. Control box, maybe I don't want that, no. Movable, can I move it? No. Okay, I'm going to hit save, and now I'm going to view this again. So now my close is gone. I'm clicking, I can't move it. So I'm going to right click up here and go back to design view. So now you're asking, why did I get rid of my close button up there? Well, because it's a form and because it's Access, I don't want people to realize that I'm in Access. I want to make it kind of fancy. So I can actually create a button. So if I come up here and choose button, and I can put a button right here, and I want this button to close my form. So I can come up to form operations, close form, next. I can have a picture. I just have text. I'm just going to say close, hit finish. So now I have a close button here. We save it. Go to form view. I don't have an X up here, but I added a close button. By clicking close, it closes out my form. So that's just some of the things you can do with forms. You can do quite a bit with them. They're really great for making it, instead of users coming into the table and editing this way, you can create a nice customer management form where they can go through and add new users. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos. I'm Professor Shanky, and I'll see you next time.